Today, we're going to talk about the value of investing in yourself in terms of business and life. So, today, here on the Vision Maker podcast, I am here with Ryan D'Amico of Dynamix. I said it, didn't I? I apologize, everyone. It's Dynamix Productions.
Yep.
So, well, this is a great start. So, Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself properly?
My fellow Americans, my name is Ryan D'Amico, and I am the owner of Dynamix Productions.
There we go. There we go. Oh, man. Okay. So now moving past that. So me and you, we know each other back from my audio days as a live sound engineer. And we actually even know each other way before that, when we're all the way back to BOCES, where we were both taking audio production together.
Yes, sir. The OG crew from HB Ward Technical Center in Riverhead.
Yeah, and we had some crazy times. You know what's the irony? That like half of that year was taken up shooting audio for video. You realize that? That just hit me.
Yeah, it's crazy because what is it?
Well, we actually filmed that pretty dope horror project. Actually,
we did, and I would say that was probably the origin of my passion for filmmaking. It was the platform for my passion for sound, but as we've learned over the past few years, us creatives like to expand and grow and go into other territories with our talents and interests.
It's just funny to me, the more I talk with people, how many seeds of film were set into our sound lives.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and our audio production life. We also ended up going to the same college.
Yep.
Some stayed longer than others.
Two-time dropout.
It's okay. If you want to understand why, just watch the first episode of this podcast. With our other colleague back at the tech booth over there, Eric, who has also gone to the same college as us. But yeah, and then we both actually even, we had a similar relationship like with my guest last time with Dan, where we helped each other out on a lot of gigs, I refer to you, you helped me cover some gigs and vice versa. And, but interestingly enough, like I know they've heard my story before in the sense of my transition when the pandemic hit. And you have a very similar story in that sense where when the pandemic hit, we did live sound. And the first thing that stopped were live events, which made an issue for live sound. So I actually don't know about that journey for you. So talk me through, tell me a little bit about what happened then and like how you pivoted and how you later created your production company.
Yeah. America. So for the longest time, the 10 years I've been doing this professionally, I've had a strong foundation in live sound, bands, music, pretty much the totality of my income came from the music world. So as we all know, one of the first industries to quite literally overnight evaporate was live production and things of that nature. So inherently, that left me in a position where I had to seek out alternative opportunities, careers, enhance upon skills that I may have had or were interested in growing. And for the longest time, I had always wanted to get involved in the film world. I consider myself a little bit of a film buff, and I was always fascinated with the filmmaking process and the steps that went into creating the final product that you would see in, your basic narratives, documentaries, et cetera, et cetera. So funny enough, one day while I was searching for, odd jobs, things to keep money coming in during a time where things were frankly weird and strange, and people were just trying to get by. I stumbled across a small production company that was in need of a sound mixer. So I guess you could say this was sort of a leap of faith, if you will, taking my foundation in sound and sound recording. I did more studio work rather than video and film. So I had a background with Pro Tools, software, etc. I took that foundation and I took a leap of faith on working on a smaller local production company on a faith-based series called Welcome to Hope. So that was my first bout with working on a set, being a boom operator, working with a location sound recorder. It was a whole new set of skills and a whole new journey for me. And, through the unlikely channels of learning skills and mediums in which you can learn new things, and especially in times of COVID when people were bound to their homes and such, surprisingly enough, I was able to make the sort of pivot into this industry through things like YouTube and things like that, alternative means of education, if you will. And that was after being on set for about a week or so, because we would do a couple weeks at a time, just how the scheduling worked with the talent. We'd bring in talent from like Ohio and things like that. So after a couple of weeks of being exposed to that new environment and working amongst true like professionals in the field, some of the most talented DPs, gaffers I have worked with up to date. I was fortunate enough to be amongst true professionals and sort of learn what the expectations and workflow of a set was like.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that's the thing is like when all that stopped coming in, I know a lot of people, because it didn't just affect our industry, it affected the world. There's so many industries across the board. And but I think like the biggest key that I noticed with like a lot of people who, are coming out with like different businesses now and different things, it's like that. It's like similar to you. It's like, sure, it like sucked. No one's going to downplay that. It sucked. But you chose to like, okay, well, let's see what else is out there. Like I got to do what I got to do. And you picked yourself up. And like you said, you took a leap of faith. You're like, okay, I'm a talented sound engineer. I know sound, but I've never done this specific field of it. So I'm going to dive in and I'm just going to have an open attitude, learn and self-educate. And like you were describing to me before we got talking here, is like you really chose to invest in yourself.
Yes. Like with some of my past successes in building a business in the live sound industry, once again, after having a decent amount of exposure to the film industry and the type of equipment I would be working with, and having quality mentors who, were doing serious projects, anywhere from being on the set of Bill O'Reilly in the City to filming narratives, documentaries. These guys traveled all over the country, and they just so happened to live on Long Island and be doing this smaller production during this time where there, quite frankly, wasn't a ton of work to go around. But anyways, after being under the tutelage of such professionals, I was confident enough in my skills and what I was bringing to the table to take this new venture a step further by investing in myself, my equipment, because a lot of times in the film industry, at least from what I have been exposed to as a sound mixer and boom op, They typically look for technicians that have their own kit.
Yep.
That's how they refer to it
Yeah.
as. And as far as I was concerned, it was more or less the same business of renting, leasing sound systems to bands, except you would be renting out microphones, recorders, booms to productions. So similar kind of business, different kind of workflow.
Yeah.
End result was the same.
Yeah. Yeah. As I channel my inner Duralist, it would be money. But no, yeah, I totally. That was just a little inside joke too.
Nah, that's fine. It's honestly being a creative and while simultaneously trying to run a business can very much be at odds within itself from time to time. And especially when the whole world has shut down and you need to keep food on the table.
Oh, 100%. Isn't that something that I think a lot of creatives struggle with, And I think a lot of people talk about this. It's definitely a very popular topic, but it's like, as creatives, we're artists at heart. I mean, we are also both musicians. You have an amazing band with your brother, The Entertainment, which you guys should check out. There are recordings out there. Shameless plug for our last member, our last guest. And and I have my band and this and that, and but so we definitely have an artist mentality. We get it, in that sense. And but in that aspect, it's like we like it so much we would do it for free. We want to be in that creative mode, but that's why we're like we want to work in it, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's like when you want to make a living off of it, you have to also master the business side, which kind of kills, in some ways, the artist inside you because, that's when you have to choose based on income and based on, like, does this make sense financially?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's not even in your own control, especially if you're working as a entrepreneur, in a sense, a freelancer, and as well as a business owner. Sometimes you run into situations where, due to budgetary constraints, your client or the person you would be deferring to, as far as the specific needs of a production, they need to cut corners just to stay within budget for their end. So that's definitely something you got to bear in mind. There's always like an issue of quality, versus sticking to the business budget, and you try to find a happy medium.
Yeah. Where it's like, I guess it's that classic triangle, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like cheap, good, or fast.
Exactly.
It's like in the quality side, really what you want is the good could be replaced with quality, I guess. Where it's like, everyone wants the good fast version, but that's usually, of course, in the higher price range.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So it's like a lot of trade-off, but you have to understand too, if they're coming with the cheap budget, there's going to be some give.
Yeah.
But I think that's always a pitfall, for creatives.
Yeah.
It's like we always want to make sure good is involved no matter where in the triangle we are.
As creatives, we would bleed, for the ideal, but it comes at odds with the business decisions. Bottom lines, unfortunately, especially to keep the lights on, have to come into effect. But
I mean,
I wouldn't do anything else.
I agree. And then the great thing though is if you really master that and you do it right, then you get to a point where you're at a point where your business is making that much where you can have those passion projects, those side projects.
Absolutely.
And it's like where you see people really filming those short films or filming this or that, or, doing those projects they really want to do. That's where it comes from. It's like, they get the business side right. They get the money. So this way they don't have to think about it, and they have the time, the freedom to, now you can just focus being an artist,
Yeah.
No, and now the other interesting thing is like, so yeah, you made that shift, and I remember you made that shift into like, so into that boom mopping and sound mixer field recorder arena, right?
Yeah.
With those production companies, and then you start working for some other people. But then you also, now you made the switch where as sound started to come back and as things started to show, started to come back, you married the two.
Yeah.
And that's how Dynamix Productions was born, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tell us about how that transition came up. With the idea, was that something you're like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do, or was it like, I'm gonna get sound jobs? Like, wait, I learned all this stuff. I'm gonna introduce it. You know, it's like because you started, and I'll let you explain how you got through this. But I want to hear because how you're getting to adding in video, adding in streaming, adding in lighting.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, living in a post-COVID world, I think you guys briefly touched upon this in past episodes, but content consumption has changed. And as a result, advertising has changed, and the way we do business there and of itself has changed as well. Now, so I was doing film for a little bit. I really, I love doing that kind of work. I try to pick it up wherever I can. And, I find myself in a situation where now that concerts are back, I'm doing that kind of stuff. I'm always busy. And, but, there's not a single day of work that I don't enjoy being a part of. And more or less, I try to do things that excite me, because if it's not exciting, if you don't wake up and go to whatever you may be doing that day and you're not excited, then, what are you doing it for? And I think it's very important to, and this is a concept that's thrown around in the finance world, and I'm sure, it's some gurus have said it, but like understanding your why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you doing something?
Start with why. Simon Sinek.
Yep.
Good book.
Understanding your why, man. And like I said, I've been in production for well over 10 years now. In the post-COVID world, I've picked up and expanded my skill sets and my interests, and I just try to do things that are exciting, and that might not be the greatest approach for, being a $1 million company, but I'm having fun with what I'm doing, and I find that it's a good life balance, I love what I do, and I don't have any regrets,
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think it's so true. I think especially in a post-COVID world, in today's world, there is so much power to the independent, to the person, not to the conglomerate in a sense. Like, you have more power now than ever to really turn a passion into something you love as also your lifestyle, your life, and again, it's a combination though, it's not always rainbows and roses, right?
But nothing in life is.
but then so you come from such a, I think people should hear your perspective in that sense, because it's like, I know some people, like, you're speaking this and you're really speaking with a lot of love, and I know where it's coming from and I understand your perspective. But like for our audience, I think a lot of people think that, and they think it's like, oh, that must mean everything's great. Every job is smooth. Every day, it's like you get to do, every project is a dream project for you, and you're working with all the people you want to work with, and, you're getting the budgets that you want, and, You want
to hear some terrible things, Victor?
If only.
But my point is,
I can change the mood.
No, but that's my point though. My point is the reality is
Yes.
the reality is still the same, and everyone's going to get that. But the difference is your attitude.
Yes.
And I want you to speak about that perspective, that your attitude when it comes to the reality of life and those situations in business and in work.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, it's, as you mentioned, it's not always rainbows and roses. sometimes it gets tough, especially I guess the most recent example I can cite. So like January's for me, I don't know about you guys, but live production, concerts, yep. a lot of the Long Island music industry is booming in the summer times. Beach clubs, outdoor events, things like that. Unfortunately, in January, a lot of that moves indoors, and some of those kinds of jobs are already allotted. People have their clubs that they work all year round. As a freelancer, there's definitely that challenge of staying busy and keeping ahead of your overhead. So for me, I guess I could really summarize the life of a entrepreneur is the ability to be able to do such pivots. I've always been fortunate enough where I've had the ability to kind of pivot into this industry or pivot into this side of the industry. And I think the general concept is to be open to learning. I think, it's not to beat a dead horse, but we're always learning. Mm-hmm. And what I have personally found in my experience is to, treat every gig like it's the biggest gig you've ever done. Mm-hmm. Those contacts, those connections, they're your lifeline in times where things are a little slower, et cetera, et cetera. And let's see. So this past month in particular, I've made a pivot into some more theater work. The Argyle Theater is more of a musical, Broadway musical style theater, but in the winter months they do some of the rock shows. So I guess I've been pigeonholed a bit as the rock and roll guy, in case you can't tell. But I'm their guy for the rock and roll shows for that. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm looking for film opportunities. So I'm covering a lot of bases here. But the general concept is stay learning, constantly be in a state of learning new things, stay ahead of the curve. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself and invest in whether it be education. Nowadays, I find it especially important, like mental health. Something we were talking about earlier off camera was the concept of burnout. That's the last thing you want to get into because, the opposite side of no work is all work. And that's a whole other problem in and of itself.
And it's an easier trap to fall into than you think.
Absolutely. And when I was recording bands, it was very easy to get trapped in that kind of, overworked kind of mindsets. When you're comping vocal takes and you're editing drums to the grid till 3 a.m, it gets a little crazy. Balance especially is important. I've definitely lost my train of thought. I've gone off on a couple.
It's okay. I'm ready to reel you back in 10 points ago.
Let's do it.
No, but it was honestly, it was really great. That's why I didn't stop you. Okay. I got a lot of good points out of that. So no, that's why I was like, okay, let's do this. This is good. It was a good.
As an entrepreneur, every day is an adventure.
And every moment is technically a tangent. But
our brains work now.
Put that in your fortune cookie.
Exactly.
But to bring back to my original question.
Yes. Back to the OG question.
Yeah. I really wanted to get your sense because we actually tangented off this question 2 questions ago. Speaking of, you made this transition like so past. Now how you decided to marry the video to your lifestyle and production. Then eventually, even now, you're building your own lighting rig into everything.
Yes.
And I want to know, like, the concept to marry these things and really be the one house for this and to start streaming. That's where I was like, where that idea came from. And you started to answer it in the sense of like how you the different needs of content and how that evolved. So that led you to kind of thinking differently of how people were perceiving your services and what you could offer.
Yes. So in that trying to stick within that train of thought, I think marrying the ideas just sort of came naturally. I've always sort of wanted to be a one house stop for all your kinds of services, and a lot of times I would run into situations, particularly when things were good. Folks would want things such as lighting. Some would ask for video, and I wanted to build a network, which, as we've mentioned, we have a good network of peers and colleagues we've worked with over the years, and we always seem to be busy. But when we make it work, and it's beautiful.
Inevitably, we gave each other too many clients, and now we're all too busy.
Yeah, everyone's just...
We're trying to find a new fish in the pond that can help us.
So the idea of marrying all those different streams of business, it was just natural.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. That's great.
Actually, I have a quick question in regards to that. Sorry.
Sure.
Go for it.
But my question towards you, Ryan, with that is that in some cases, especially if people are like trying to start up a business and everything, some of the common things that people are told is kind of build up your niche and kind of stick with it. In regards to you kind of like branching out a little bit, was it like, were you worried about like pivoting from your original vision of your company, or were you kind of welcoming that like pivot and seeing where it goes type of thing?
Well, I think change is inherently scary for anybody. But through the circumstances, I would say that COVID sort of put us all in, taking that kind of leap of faith and the concept of, reinventing yourself and expanding into other territories. It really got reinforced during those times. I would go as far as to say that I guess the original vision of the sound company sort of evolved with the needs of the time. And like I said, the interests that had evolved from the things that excited me,
I think evolve's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the topic of niching down, I kind of see it as specializing.
Yeah.
And I understand the argument. The argument's for it's like you gotta go to your general doctor, and he earns a certain amount per visit, right?
Yeah.
But say you need heart surgery, you go to a heart surgeon. Now his scale of pay is almost 10 times more than your general doctor, because you wouldn't go to him for a special need like that,
Yeah.
So I get that concept, but I think creative field, I think people also kind of like misconstrue that concept in a way, because I think, so for me, this was an interesting perspective shift that helped me, because I see it in you. I would say, even though your product variety is a little vast, right? But your clientele is kind of specialized. You really, for the most part, and I know you work with some films and different things like that, but really you work with the music market.
Yeah.
You work with bands, and with those bands, you live stream, you do sound, you provide lights, so you do the whole nine,
Yeah.
So you have multiple packages and different things like that. But really, you're specialized as the music guy or as the rock guy, you said, but doesn't not necessarily, because, and I know you do other things outside of that, but that's really like what you're known for.
Yeah, my foundation.
Your foundation. And because we've had this recent talk and kind of conversation internally here at Vision Maker as far as specializing. And that's when I feel like a lot of creatives think special niching is more on the product than it is on who you're servicing. On your target market is the term that is used. So, and I think really when business professionals are talking about niching down, they're talking about your target market and not your product. But we're so focused on what we do. We think that's what it means. It's like, oh, so I only make cinematic story videos, or I only make 3-minute promos. I only make social media videos. I only do this, and I only do virtual tours, or or I only do live streaming. All this, right?
Yeah.
And there's definitely power into being like that. But then you're specialized in a product, not necessarily a target market. The target market are people who need that product, but it's not necessarily. It's a different type of target. But the other example is like the one we were like, I realized, and when I had this perspective shift, it made it so much easier for me to pick a niche, where it was like our target market is, for example, something we're building towards is arts and cultural institutions, because we already have relationships with some and personal experience with others. So in that sense, we are niching down, but our product range is still wide.
Yeah.
Because our clientele in that specialized market, in that target market, requires everything from virtual video to exhibition videos to artist videos to short social media content to live streaming talks and shows. And they do music and they do performance. And so it goes documentary style, this and that. So it's not limiting what we do as a product. And we're also not closing ourselves off from other opportunities. Like you don't either.
You never should. I think a very basic business principle is, you're trying to keep business coming in. By cutting yourself into a corner, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Exactly.
And I firmly believe we are in a time where, companies, businesses, individuals, we can consistently reinvent and add to our skill sets and
evolve, as you were saying.
Evolve. I think the sky's the limit. I mean, not to diss folks who are really super honed in on one thing.
No, but there's definitely value in that.
Yeah, and I would make the argument that COVID really kind of opened that perspective up. Is when you put all your eggs in one basket and something disastrous happens, it's all gone in a second. Yeah. I mean, you got to be able to pivot.
You got to also
survive.
Exactly, and you got to also think about life, because that's your life, that's your work life, right? But you also think about that in the same way as investments. You wouldn't put all your investments into one stock, into one fund, into
ETFs.
Like just saying that is it just sounds silly.
Yeah.
We all know that. Why do we do that with our livelihoods?
Exactly. And I mean, as corny as it is, I consider my business like, a part of my daily life, It's, I live and breathe my business. That's how I look at it.
It's literally 50% of the hours you're awake most of the time.
Yeah.
So of course it is part of your life. It's like, that's how you earn resources to live,
Yeah.
But and so in that sense, it's like, it's not a bad thing to diversify, but I also understand it's like, it's okay to be known as the guy in something, because that does earn you that specialty, but it also doesn't mean that you should be only that guy.
Yeah.
You could be that guy. And then if then Joe Schmo over here asks you something completely different, like, I'm the museums and arts guy. And then he's like, can you do a real estate video for me, bro? I'm like, oh, I got Sunday free. Sure, why not? Yeah, it's like, why not?
Exactly.
Or, it's like, I'm not going to be like, if, but of course, just because you're known as something doesn't mean you say no to everything else.
Absolutely. And, I think we were speaking about like New Year's resolutions earlier.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I've been totally like, opposed to like getting into the DJ side of the business.
Did you make one this year?
I want to try and collaborate with DJs. I want to get into some corporate stuff. You know, I don't want to be just the rock guy anymore.
Okay.
I love my rock bands. I love the people I work with.
But you want to pivot?
I think I got more to offer.
Yeah.
You know, I think I could do it.
I know you can do it. I don't think I know.
Well, you know, man, nothing but respect for, you know, you as an individual, your growth through the years, your whole operation. I was talking to Daniel earlier, and I was saying that, you know, if any one of our colleagues were going to do something like this, the podcast and the whole studio, and kill it and succeed, you were the guy to do it. So I'm so glad, you know.
Oh, I appreciate that, brother. I truly
Truthfully.
appreciate it. And I mean, I'm proud of both of you guys too, you know. I mean, like, I see all you guys are doing great
But
things.
me more than Dan, right? Dan's behind that camera.
Yeah, see the side will come again.
America.
America. Oh, yeah. Too funny. Yeah, with that, I mean, and all that. Now, another thing that I like to ask, like all our guests,
For sure.
what is one thing that you wish you knew before you got your start? Like, you wish, like, going into doing sound, doing a creative field, like, what is one thing you wish you knew in the beginning?
One thing I wish I knew in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm going to be corny and say the value of a great mentor, because really what solidified my direction in this industry, particularly live sound, because as you know, both you and I went into BOCES wanting to record our bands, and clearly we're doing different things now, but a great mentor, the one in particular, the late great George Marshall, helped me shape the live sound engineer that I am today. I'm forever grateful for his teachings, for him as a friend and a colleague.
I think that is absolutely fantastic. I know I've had many, many great mentors in my sound career, in business, and in life, and even now in film, that I think a great mentor can literally skyrocket your success and literally help you avoid so many pitfalls. I think one of my mentors once said it this way: find someone in life that has what you want and is where you want to be, not just financially, but in a full lifestyle way, and is living life the way you want to live. If you do what they've done, you'll have what they have. You know?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's one thing that if you're considering a mentor, just really look at like the fruit on the tree, and ask yourself if this is the fruit that you want to bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you'll find that a mentor isn't necessarily doesn't necessarily even have to be an official sort of arrangement.
No.
I could think of 3 people off the top of my head that I work with on a regular basis that I consider, you know, professionals in the highest regard, that, you know, go to bat for me when it comes to like jobs, and, you know, to this day, you know, are helping me along, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the greatest thing. When you look at the fruit, it doesn't matter shape, size, status.
They could literally come from anywhere. For me, it was
exactly
one of my high school teachers that basically just got me his personality and everything, just really opened up the floodgates for me pursuing filmmaking. And shout out Mr. Kasky. Because it really comes in, like what Victor said, all shapes and sizes. Like I said, it could be someone me in the professional world. It could be your high school film teacher.
Yeah.
100%. No, I mean, big shout out to all teachers out there because
Yep.
they do make a difference in people's lives,
yeah.
and they have a big responsibility in that, and always deserving more respect.
Absolutely.
I could point to teachers, I could point to professionals, I could point to colleagues, and I could even point to paid mentors too. Like I've seen them all, but and they all have value. But like I said, you got to use that discernment too. Okay, I mean, any final thoughts that you have that you want to leave our viewers with? I mean, on your journey, or and how else you maybe have invested in yourself that you think has proven valuable to your business and life?
Well, I guess the, basic stuff is, and this was mentioned on another one of the podcasts, is maintaining a even balance of, book knowledge, hands-on experience, things of that nature. Let's see. So many things I wanted to tackle. I made notes too. I'm trying to remember.
We might have to have a part 2.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be very fun. The perfect full circle. Don't be afraid to take a leap of faith and reinvent yourself with skills, knowledge, experiences, people.
And with that, I have nothing else to say. That was fantastic. I think that's great. Comment below if you want to have a part 2 with Ryan. But thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us on the Vision Maker podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell the good people where they can follow you and find you.
Sure thing. Dynamix Productions on Facebook and Dynamix Productions NY on Instagram.
Can I get one of those hats?
I'll get one just for you, Eric.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay. Well, have a good night. As always, you could find me at VictorM_VisionMaker. You can find Eric at eRockstar05, right? On Twitter and Instagram.
Correct.
And you can find us and everything related to our podcast on VM Productions NY on Instagram or TikTok and Facebook, or our website, visionmakerproductions.com. Okay? Have a good night.